Asahi is an emo little bitch who can't get hoes, but everything changes when his daddy turns into a pimp and blesses him with 5 girls who want him to eat and devour their roast beef. It all starts when Asahi is having a wet dream about a girl and is woken up by his creepy futuristic alarm lovering. He gets up from his bed and starts his day by eating toasted bananas in his futuristic house. He watches the sketchy fortune teller channel on his TV. The fortune teller tells Asahi that his birthday is today's lucky number. She claims that today, Asahi will have a few exciting encounters that will alter his life with 5 different lucky words, which are corner, train, staircase, cleaning robot, dog, and letter. Loverin tells him to haul ass, or he will be late to school. Asahi brushes his teeth and leaves the house. On his way to the train station, Asahi runs past a street corner and crashes into a nerd with big melons. He ends up in a classic position of lying down between her legs and sees the kitty purring in front of him. The nerd girl quickly gets off and apologizes. She starts blushing and asks him if he has seen her roast beef. Asahi assures her that he has only seen the print, and the girl is relieved as she's wearing granny panties for the day. He's confused, and the girl tells him to forget everything she's saying. The girl sees the time and rushes off somewhere. Asahi looks down and sees her panties on the floor.
It was perfect.
Later, Asahi arrives at the train station and gets inside the train in time. He sits down and a green-haired MILF oddly sits next to him like a creep, even with all the empty seats available. She falls asleep and starts having wet dreams while rubbing his manly arms. Asahi starts panicking and tries to get up, but her grip is too strong for him. He pulls harder and falls on top of her on the floor. She wakes up to see his hands on her sweet melons and almost decapitates him with her legs. She starts bugging like a blind person and Asahi runs away from the train. After meeting weird girls on a street corner and inside a train, Asahi starts remembering what the fortune teller said as he encounters a staircase. He quickly steps down and believes that it is a fluke. Suddenly, another girl steps down the staircase and slips, putting her lower lips on Asahi's upper lips. The girl gets up and sees Asahi's meat raised to the sky and starts screaming while being in a fun position. Asahi tells her that he is the victim, but the girl refuses to accept it and smashes his banana. Later, there is a cleaning robot and Asahi hides from it to avoid fate. The robot comes back carrying a bra while fate tells him, "You thought, bitch," and a girl runs at him and accuses him of stealing her bra to continue his fate. Suddenly, the robot goes to the girl and says that it sees her as trash after smelling the ocean underneath her. The robot lifts her skirt while calling her trash and drags her away, leaving Asahi more confused. Later, a dog runs into Asahi and he starts pampering the dog before it runs away. Asahi goes after it and sees a bigger dog humping a poor innocent girl. The girl begs Asahi to stop this madness, but Asahi walks away uninterested out of fear. Then the big dog notices Asahi and decides he prefers sausage. The big dog jumps and humps Asahi, while the girl returns the favor, leaving Asahi to have a good time with the dog. Afterward, he wakes up to little kids prodding him and realizes that he's late. He goes to his class and sneaks in, while his friend, Yoshio, tells him where his seat is. Asahi shocks himself to see all the girls he met this morning are there as new students and his new homeroom teacher. One of the girls notices him and he starts sweating balls over the plot development. The teacher notices him and calls him out for sneaking in. The girls start wondering why he's looking away, and the teacher demands to look at his cute face. He then transforms his face into a failed surgery to hide himself, but the girl next to him notices who he is. Later, the girls start getting along, while Asahi holds slap marks on his face. Yoshio tries to talk to him, but Asahi doesn't know who he is, as the class was just reshuffled. Yoshio asks him what happened, and Asahi tells him. Yoshio tells Asahi that he is jealous of him, but Asahi is not interested in the girls as he is a cool Sigma. Meanwhile, the girls start talking shit about Asahi and the nerd tries to defend him, but she realizes that she lost her panties. Then at PE, Yoshio admires the new students, which are the German model Karen, the feisty American Amelia, the Japanese cutie Owie, the hot Chinese teacher Bongfa, and the cute Bulgarian femboy Ilya, who is a dude. Yoshio asks Asahi if he likes any of them, and he declines as one of them is a dude and the rest hates him. Then, someone left a letter in his locker, and the letter demanded he meet after school. He doesn't care and runs to another corner and almost crashes into Owie again. Oe asks him if he has her panties.
Yes!
And he pulls it out, but it turns out to be Amelia's bra instead. Oe blushes and slaps him. At lunch, he goes to buy food, but it has run out. Beside him is Karen, who is facing the same fate. Asadi pulls out his banana and offers it to her, and she remembers how she previously hid it. Then she eats his banana and thanks him. Later, he buys food from a vending machine and notices Ilya being chased by dogs again. Ilya hides behind him, and Asadi fights off the dog. The dog sees his chance to run behind Asadi and have a piece of his sweet cheeks. Afterward, Ilya thanks him and apologizes for what happened. At school, Asadi holds his shoulder in pain and Monkfa notices him. She pulls him to the infirmary to tend to his wounds. Then, she apologizes for what happened on the train. Amelia comes in and calls him a creep. Asahi notices her in pain and asks to help her. She tells him that it hurts without her bra, and he shows her the bra he carried. She freaks out but apologizes afterward after realizing what happened. After school, he manages to clear up the misunderstandings apart from Awa, who got worse. He goes to follow the letter to meet who sent it. He meets Awa there and hands her the panties, while Oe tells him that she loves him, while the wind blows her skirt to show him the kitty. He asks her to repeat herself as he gets distracted by her hua. Oa doubles down and tells him that she wants to be his wife, and asks him if he feels the same way. He misunderstands her, thinking that she's here for the thrill of getting exposed, and points out that she is wearing no panties. Oa tries to explain herself, but Asai understands what happened and points out her panties on the tree, and it gets blown away. Oa runs away, leaving him confused. He then starts thinking of Aoi's confession, and Ilya pops up behind him, scaring him as a dog. Then, they sit down somewhere and Ilya tells him that he loves him, as his heart skips a beat whenever he sees Asadi. Asadi tries to get him to explain, but Monkfa shows up and pulls Asadi away from Ilya. She brings him to the streets and starts licking his Adam's apple to get away from the men in black. She goes even harder and makes Asadi fold with hickeys on his neck. Monkfa explains to him that the men in black are people sent by someone who is trying to marry her, but she is not interested. Then she tells Asahi that she loves him and jiggles her melons at him to get him to ravage her. Instead, Asahi runs away from her, but Karen sees him and jumps at him while wearing a wedding dress. She starts chasing him and tells him that he's lucky that a model like her is chasing him. She tells him that her wedding dress is for her wedding with him, and that she loves him. He is not interested, but Karen pulls him away to a love hotel to seal the deal. Asahi tells her to calm down, and instead do a simple kiss first. He tells her to close her eyes, but then he runs away to leave her alone. Then, Amelia in her disguise asks Asahi for his signature and forces him to fill out a marriage form, but Asahi notices and refuses to fill it out. She tries to convince him to marry her, but he's not interested and leaves her with a cleaning machine that thinks she's trash again. Later at home, all the girls are at his home welcoming him like his wife. They start rizzing him, but his soul is too strong for their cheap woos. Then they tell him that he got a message from his father. His father tells him that all 5 of them are potential brides for him to choose. He tells Asahi that they will start living together, and he can either choose one of them or none at all. Then the girls start ogling him and push their various tasty melons on him to show him what heaven feels like. Asahi has enough and tells all of them to leave. Ilya tells him that they have nowhere to go, but Asahi doesn't care. He tells them that his house doesn't have enough rooms for all of them, but he notices that his house suddenly has extra rooms. They tell him that he has no reason to not want them, but he tells them that a guy like him shouldn't live with that many girls and a cute boy at once. He warns them that dirty things might happen, but the girls encourage him to do so. Then, they beg him to let them stay with him. Oe cooks them dinner, and the girls start trying to feed him. Later, Oe sits next to him and thanks him for not throwing them out. He starts getting conscious of the plots and curves around him, and runs away to take a bath. Karen starts undressing to join him and gets kicked out. Meanwhile, Amelia is inside the bathtub, like a scuba diver, waiting to get a peek at his barracuda. Asahi notices and drowns her, but Amelia refuses and shows him her cherries instead. Asahi gets out to go to his room. He starts looking around to make sure his room is girl-free, and he looks up to see Monkfa stuck on the roof. Later, he scolds them and tells them to get out. They tell him that they have nowhere to go, so instead, Asahi gets out of his own house. Afterward, he goes to a temple alone and Oe finds him. Oe tells him that they have been waiting to meet him all this time to see what kind of destiny awaits them. She asks him to come back and tells him that they will leave if he wants them to. She tells him they will figure out where to stay eventually. Her words touch Asadi, and he decides that they can stay at his house. He rizzes her, and she remembers her past, causing her to cry with happiness. Meanwhile, the girls already pack their bags and are ready to leave. Then, Asahi tells them that they can stay with him to start making babies. A few days later, he wakes up to see all his locks open and a girl under his blanket. He opens his blanket to see Amelia wanting to put his toes as a signature to their marriage form. Later he tells Ewa that it happens again when another girl invades his room. Then, Karen walks down from her room and asks Ewa for some towels like she's her own mother. Asadi asks Ewa why she never invaded her room like the others. But then Mongfa shows up and asks Ewa for her tablet like a child. Then, Amelia pops up and asks Ewa for her bra. Oe asks Amelia to help her make breakfast, but Ilya shows up and takes over. Later, Ilya manages to write down names on an omelet, but Amelia doesn't want to get left behind and does the same. She tries to write Asadi's name, but ends up writing nonsense as she struggles to write kanji. At school, the teacher orders the class to write kanji and Amelia is insecure. First, the teacher asks Karen to write on the board, and she passes with flying colors. Then, Amelia is next to write on the board and ends up writing alien language. She gets embarrassed, and the whole class laughs. After class, the teacher announces a kanji test. Amelia laughs as she feels above the test and asks Asahi to go to lunch, but he's gone. Meanwhile, Asahi eats lunch with Yoshio to avoid the girls. Yoshio says that he thinks Amelia is cute, but Asahi disagrees and gets PTSD remembering the other day when Amelia lost a rock, paper, scissors to the TV and starts a training arc to always win a rock, paper, scissors contest. Then, she challenges the other girls and puts her puddings on the line, thinking she will win. She ends up losing her puddings and pride at the same time. Yoshio tells Asahi that the girls and especially Aoi must really love him to cook him his favorite foods every day. Suddenly, he realizes that he never told Aoi about his favorite foods. At night, Asadi goes looking for Amelia and goes to her room. He hears her making sweet happy noises behind the door and goes to confront her. It turns out that she is just studying kanji through dirty fun books. She's frustrated that she's having a hard time mastering the language and she wants to be good at it too. Then, Asadi offers to teach him. They meet in the library, and Asadi starts by giving her a simple test, which she ends up with answers like sticky white cream and fat sausages. He gives her more tests, and she oddly answers with things like cervix, cheeks, and mushrooms. He wonders why she is only good at writing dirty things, and he decides to teach her from the top. Back at home, Amelia is not even eating her favorite puddings, and Asahi notices that Amelia is studying intensely in her room. In school, Amelia continues to study and work harder than anyone as she doesn't like to lose. Asahi tries to convince her that it's okay to be bad at some things, but she refuses. She tells him that her mama didn't raise a weak bitch, and that she will keep trying her hardest as she wants to speak his language. At home, the girls start worrying about Amelia. Asahi goes to her room to check on her. She tells him to leave her alone and starts crying. She tells him that she hates herself for not being able to express her feelings correctly, and often pushes people away out of her conflicted emotions to hate her. He rises her and tells her that he will never hate her, and that he loves how hardworking she is in wanting to speak his language. Then he gives her a pat on the head, and she unlocks a memory of him in the past. She turns back to normal, and tells him to pump her with his baby batter. Instead, he gives her some notes to help her study kanji. She thanks him and starts blushing. The next day, Amelia starts putting kanji notes on everything in the house to help her study, and the girls are supportive of her. At school, they finish the test. A few days later, Amelia tells Asadi that it's her turn to teach him the king's English. Then the test results come back and Amelia gets 70 on the test. She pulls out her tiny notebook and smiles seeing Asadi's trust in her. Asahi sees a note on his lunchbox from Amelia, asking him to teach her more later. He opens his lunchbox to see an omelet with his name on it, written by Amelia in kanji. While being alone, Ilya starts remembering his father who tells him to stop living as a girl, but instead live like a man. Asahi opens the door to see Ilya crouching on the toilet and closes it to give him some privacy. A few days before, Ilya and the girls won themselves a free ticket to a hot bath villa. They arrive to see a scary-looking villa, and Amelia starts drooling as it's the same location they shot an adult movie that she loves. The innkeeper greets them, and she's a 10-foot-tall Titan dude coming straight from a Ghibli movie. The group starts getting nervous, and they order their rooms with the girls and boys separated. Asahi and Ilya stay in a room, just the two of them. Ilya starts getting nervous, then the girls come in and ask Asahi to come play with them. The girls start jiggling their jugs and playing ping pong, while the boys watch as scorekeepers. Karen starts talking shit at Mongfa, calling her old and saggy. Mongfa goes Michael Jordan and takes it personally before hitting the ball faster than light itself. The ball starts bouncing around, destroying decorations and clothes before ending up under Asahi's balls, becoming his third sack. The girls are shaking at Mongfa's power and Kirin's clothes start dissolving. Later at dinner, Amelia asks for sushi served on girls' naked bodies, like in the movies, but gets a tengu platter instead. She asks what it is and Mongfa explains that tengu are red-colored Pinocchio-looking ass creature, who's a legend in that location. The innkeeper tells them that her ancestors once saw a tengu in the onsen, but the group doesn't believe the bullshit story. Afterward at the bath, Ilya is nervous to show his gigantic schmeat in the bath, but Asahi slaps his sweet cheeks and shows off his wiener, making Ilya even more nervous. Asahi goes to the hot bath first, and Ilya is looking for a way to get out of this situation and sees the tengu mast. Meanwhile, the girls are admiring each other's bodies and start arguing about who has the tastiest melons. Ilya finally comes out and shocks Asahi with the size of his meat under the towel. Ilya apologizes for not being able to fit into the towel, and Asahi starts calling him the best male specimen since the days of Rasputin. Ilya walks past him while slanging his meat around, and Asahi still can't believe the sheer size of his schnitzel. Asahi offers to wash Ilya's back. He starts washing Ilya's back and starts getting suspicious of why Ilya keeps lying about himself. Ilya quickly turns the situation around and offers to wash Asahi's back instead. Asahi tries to refuse, but Ilya threatens him using his massive rifle. Then, Ilya starts cleaning his back and keeps giving him unintentional backshots with his sausage. Ilya slips up and runs away to the sauna. Meanwhile, the girls are enjoying themselves in the bath, while Kirin tries to peek at Asahi and Ilya. In the sauna, Ilya and Asahi compete to who can last longer. Ilya refuses to give up out of fear that Asahi will find out that he's actually a girl. Suddenly, the heat gets higher, and it burns the tengu mask under Ilya's towel. Asahi is shocked to see the mask burning, which makes Ilya look like he's transforming. He then goes to Ilya and tells her that she's a man of all men after seeing her godlike aura. Ilya goes out in the open, and the wind blows her towels away alongside his faked gigantic wiener. Asahi is walking to join her, and she tries to quickly get her towel back. Meanwhile, Kirin and Amelia have created a makeshift ladder so they can peek at the boys. Asahi finally comes out to the open to see Ilya wearing the mask on her face. She starts speaking like a tengu, and they all believe her and start panicking. Ilya successfully hides her secret identity from Asahi, but then she slips on the soap and shows Asahi what she really is. Later, Ilya wakes up to Asahi and starts panicking. Asahi apologizes for not realizing she's a girl and not a dude with a foot-long man's stick. She tells him that it's her fault for pretending and lying to be a man all this time. She starts telling Asahi how her father always wanted her to be a boy before he died, and she chose to fulfill his wishes. Then, Asahi tells her that she should choose what she wants. Ilya starts crying and tells him that she wants to be a princess and not a prince. Asahi risks her, and she starts seeing a flashback of a younger Asahi. Then she thanks him for assuring her. The next day, Amelia and Kirin start talking about how they saw the creepy naked tengu swaying her cheeks around. Meanwhile, Ilya is blushing more than a tomato. The next day, Ilya becomes a woman by the name of Irina. Then, Mongfa goes to Asahi and plays husband and wife. In class, Yoshio tells Asahi how jealous he is of him for being able to bump beds and sucks the toes of a mature woman like Mongfa. They see her popularity with boys and girls and think that she's a reliable woman. Later, Mongfa gets drunk, destroying her reputation as reliable. Amelia asks Mongfa to share some of her booze, but Oi tells her no while giving Mongfa some snacks. Ilya starts blushing and tells Mongfa that her milky is slipping out. Mongfa teases Asahi and asks him to put her jugs in their place, and Kirin gets jealous. Mongfa starts hugging everyone out of love and passes out to the booze. Later, Asahi goes to his room to see a girl under his blanket. He scolds her and opens the blanket to see a dude waiting for him named Colonel Sanders. He tells Asahi to come with him and knock him out. Later, Asahi wakes up in an unknown room with bondages tying him up. Sanders tells him that he's a bait to lure someone and that someone is in his house. Then, an attack happens and Mongfa is there to save him. She starts drooling to see Asahi so exposed and starts taking pictures. Then they escape the room and walk past his bodies on the floor. Then the enemy backup arrives and tries to attack, but Mongfa can beat them while Asahi uses a woman's favorite toy to help her. They run to the elevator, but it's not working. Mongfa tells him that they need to go to the control room and uses her Terminator powers to locate it. Then the control room doors are locked, but she goes all Tom Cruise and breaks into the room from the outside. She starts hacking and manages to open the access. Suddenly, Sanders shows up from the floor and calls Mongfa Bloody Tiger. Sanders attacks them, but Mongfa pushes him back. Sanders starts monologuing about Mongfa and her previous life as the second coming of John Wick with the codename Bloody Tiger. Asahi is in disbelief hearing Sanders talk about how Mongfa was a cold-blooded agent who was able to take down organizations and has her hands covered in blood. Sanders rushes them and starts beating the shit out of Mongfa, demanding her to get serious. Then he approaches Asahi as a way to motivate Mongfa to fight harder. She jumps Sanders from the back, but he counters her and holds her upside down. Mongfa tells Asahi to push a switch, and then her trap works by tightening her wires around Sanders. It gets tighter and Mongfa kicks him in the face. Then they go to the elevator, and she notices that Asahi is bleeding and uses her skirt to bandage him. She then tells him that what Sanders said was right, but she wanted to change her ways of life and become a teacher who builds a future and enjoys her time with others. She thanks him for giving her a chance to taste the good life and feel what the meaning of life is. The elevator opens and she changes clothes while telling him that she will keep him safe. Later, the guards are ready to welcome the elevator with their guns, but Mongfa comes out and shows them who their daddy is. She moves faster than bullets and starts violating them with her fist. She tells Asahi that he should escape from the emergency exit. Asahi asks her to come with him, but she wants to tragically sacrifice herself and tells Asahi to escape without her. Asahi heavy-heartedly escapes and starts remembering Mongfa in his head. Meanwhile, Mongfa continues fighting and ends up crying about losing the life she had. Suddenly, Sanders almost atom smashed her and shows up like the Terminator with his half-robotic body. But Sanders' robotic upgrades are too strong, and he kinkily chokes her to a wall. Then, Asahi helps her and charges straight at Sanders. Asahi refuses to give her up and Mongfa remembers her past. Meanwhile, Sanders attacks Asahi, but Asahi outsmarts him by using lotion and going commando. He uses his balls and wits and electrocutes Sanders before Mongfa delivers the finishing blow to defeat Sanders. Then Asahi is all naked and tells her that he won't go home without her, as she is someone precious to him. Mongfa starts crying and hugs his slimy body on her melons. Then they hold hands while facing the sunset to go home. The next morning, Karen gets home late, walks into the living room, and starts panicking. The other girls wake up to see what she sees and see a slimy Asahi sleeping on Mongfa's milky jugs. A few days later, a health bar appears and it rises as Asahi is shopping in a convenience store. A robot pops up and starts heat, scanning him to reveal his dingus having a high temperature. It tries to attack him, but a Sailor Moon member gotten lost and saves him. The next day, he tells Yoshio that he saw a magical girl and Yoshio calls him delusional. Then, Karen goes to Asahi and asks him to hump him endlessly. She tells him that she's jealous that he's been showing more attention to other girls, but not her. Then, a giant robot pops up in the city and the news report of the robot being alien and is in different countries. Suddenly, a robot scans the dude's dingus and attacks them, but Mongfa saves Asahi from getting attacked. Suddenly, Yoshio has a diaper that toasts his sausage and eggs until it's crispy. Then, they notice Karen is gone. At the rooftop, Karen transforms into a magical girl and Asahi catches her in the act. A robot bunny pops up and tells Asahi that he will understand later. Karen asks Asahi to touch her melons and the bunny pushes him to do so. From getting her melons touched, her power rises to over 9,000 and she flies to the monster. She uses her staff and launches an attack on the monster, but it has no effect. She loses power and she flies back to Asahi. Later, Karen explains how she got her powers during a photo shoot, and she makes a pact with the bunny to become a magical girl superhero. The bunny introduces himself as Sagami, who is a shit Doraemon reject. Sagami explains that the robots like to take men's balls by putting bombs on their crotches with the goal of making all men unable to reproduce. Sagami continues that Karen's power is the key and they need Asahi to help them. Later, the girls run away to go home to safety. Meanwhile, Karen and Asahi go to a special device that holds a special ability that raises Karen's power. Sagami continues by saying that Asahi needs to make Karen's heart race. They go inside the device and Karen starts undressing. Karen tells him to lay the pipe on her cheeks to raise her powers. Asahi got curious and asked her how she raised her powers before, and it turns out she's been peeking on him, bathing and sniffing his clothes. Asahi then pushes her to the wall to raise her heart, but it's not enough. Then he goes to kiss her but pulls back. Suddenly, he asks her if she likes him and shows her that the power meter has not gone up a bit as proof. Karen tells him that she doesn't know what it's like to love someone. She urges him that the world is ending and undresses fully before pushing him to the couch and taking off his clothes. She asks Asahi to do the deed, but then the other girls are outside the device after Aoi hears Asahi's voice. Asahi tries to scream, but Karen holds his mouth, while Aoi's eyes almost become a Sharingan. Then, Karen takes off Asahi's underwear and smiles, seeing his meaty banana. Asahi hits her on the head and tells her that she needs to value herself more. Karen tries to convince him, but he tells her that he cherishes her so much that it's better if she does it with someone she loves. Sagamite tells him to man up and put his meat in her kuva already, but Asahi tells the bunny in heat to care about Karen's feelings. Karen's heart races faster and the power meter goes higher hearing his words. Suddenly, the robot shows up and Asahi acts as a distraction while putting his balls on the line. Meanwhile, Karen's heart starts racing harder and she starts glowing. The robots are about to blow Asahi's balls to pieces, but Karen transforms just in time to save him. She transforms into a higher-level magical girl. She tells Asahi that she is reborn, and she goes straight to business. She aims her magical staff at the big robot, and goes band for band with it in a colorful battle. Then, Asahi holds her stick, and helps her defeat the big balls-busting robot. The robot explodes and returns all the balls it took to its rightful owners. Karen transforms back to normal, and unlocks a memory of her past with him. A feather falls to her head, and Asahi tries to get it, but Karen tells him to not get any closer. Meanwhile, a secret meeting between the alarm clocks is held with a doctor named Yoshino. In a dream, Asahi walks along the beach stargazing with a girl. She starts rizzing him and tells him that she wishes this little dream of theirs could last forever. Then he wakes up to the shitty real world. The girls are waiting and Amelia jumps to his bed, but he dodges. Amelia tells him to get ready for their trip to the beach. Later, Yoshio starts hyping them up for the trip to his family's private beach, but they ignore this virgin peasant and start ogling the Chadasati. Irina starts getting excited, but the girls tells her that the sea has tentacle monsters that will turn this into a rated-R show. Yoshio has enough and tells them that all of them, including Asahi, will fall to his riz later. Then, their ride is arriving and Yoshio waves at it, only to get yeeted by the car, never to be seen again. Later at the villa, they leave Yoshio's poor, unimportant existence behind, and Asahi realizes he doesn't really know him that well. Then, they go to the beach and the girls start getting wet and playing with each other. Irina tells him that she's happy that he always backs her, while Monfa gets jealous. She tells him to be more daring and call her either by her name or call her Milky Mommy instead. Amelia tells her to stop ogling Asahi by herself and Karen shoots water at her. Afterward, the girls enjoy themselves and Karen calls Monfa, an old hag just for gags. Monfa chases Karen to a beach sign. They read the sign and it says that the beach is for nudists only. Suddenly the girls take off their clothes and go commando. Asahi starts dying out of embarrassment with his willy out, and the girls put him in a gimp mask to protect his identity. They play a game where the masked hunter chases them and starts running. Then, the girls bury him in the sand next to a watermelon. They play a game of smack the melon and Monfa almost obliterates Asahi, but misses him completely before sending everyone flying. Asahi looks around without the gimp mask and sees the girls roast beef, and they all scream. Afterward, they walk together to the villa and the girls wish it could stay this way forever, and they all suddenly disappear. Asahi starts looking for them at the villa, but they're not there. Suddenly, Aoi pops up and doesn't remember the other girls. Asahi starts becoming the guy from Golden Time and forgets too. They start preparing for dinner, but Asahi keeps preparing the dishes for 6 people. He drops a plate and holds hands with Aoi. Then, Yoshio calls his phone, but Aoi declines it behind Asahi's back. Later, they start the barbecue and Aoi starts cutting the meat ominously. Yoshio calls again, but this time Aoi destroys the phone behind Asahi's back. Asahi notices that the clock is broken, but Aoi tells him to ignore it to start dinner. Then, they eat dinner that has celery in it and Asahi tells her that he likes eating it recently. Afterward, they sit in front of the fire, and he starts remembering the girls, but Aoi distracts him to walk somewhere else. They go to a secret lake with a sakura in the middle and Aoi tells him she loves him. She asks him to love her and only her, but Asahi's memory is back. He asks her where the others have gone and demands her to answer. Aoi begs him to stop caring and stay with her while promising to give him his every wish. She tells him she wants to be with him forever, which triggers his memory and calls out Monfa. He starts saying the other girls' names and it breaks Aoi. Asahi suddenly remembers the girl from his past, Ai, and she shows up in front of him, like in the old days while Aoi is gone. Ai tells him that she wants to stay with him, but it's not possible. She asks him to never come here again. Suddenly, everything starts glitching out and goes dark. Asadi wakes up in his bed like usual and he's extremely late for school. He looks around to see the girls are not there but his mother is. Meanwhile, a scientist is tracking him down. Asahi runs to his school and sees a different student in his seat. Asadi starts asking him about Amelia and the others, but the classmates laugh at him, thinking it's a joke as they don't exist. Asahi runs away and some students recognize him as the student who's been absent for ages. He keeps running in terror and arrives at the sakura tree to see it doesn't exist anymore. Suddenly, the scientist shows up and starts testing his health. Asahi doesn't know who she is, but then she pulls out Yoshio and starts talking like him. Then, she brings him somewhere with the promise that he will be able to meet them. They arrive at a facility to see everyone panicking and stop to hide from someone. They go to her office and she asks him to sit on a chair that tests his health. She checks and sees that he's healthy, but he has enough and threatens to leave if he doesn't see the girls. She calms him down and introduces herself as Yoshino. He doesn't recognize her and she shows him an article about the AOI test. Asahi starts remembering his past when he first read about it. Then she shows him an item, and he remembers when he first met Yoshino after being selected for the AOI test. She starts getting excited for him to remember, but he doesn't remember jack shit. Then she gives up and instead shows him a hologram. It shows him the house he lives in, and she explains that he has been living in that house in a world of virtual reality for the past few months. He demands an explanation about the girls, and Yoshino tells him that every single one of them is an AI. Asahi can't believe it, and starts laughing like a maniac. He starts explaining how he's able to touch and smell them, but Yoshino explains that it was all AI, and explains that AI has become an important part of society, and it has gotten an additional upgrade, which is the human emotion. She explains that throughout the years, humans have developed AI to be more like humans, but they still lack feelings. Then they made a breakthrough in creating a next-level AI and real emotions. To achieve it, the AI has to interact with actual humans, which is the project Asahi signed up for. She explains that Asahi signed up for the romantic emotions as his experiment. She continues by saying that the AI they meet is designed by researchers from around the world to ensure the test subject is attracted to the AI, and the result of those research are the girls he lived with. Asahi starts losing his head, and Yoshino explains that she was guiding him from the real world through Yoshio, and the reason the girls tell him that they loved him very early on is because AI doesn't understand the concept of love. After spending time with Asahi, the girls start to understand the same feelings humans have. Until the morning of the beach trip, they lost connection to that world when Yoshio was yeeted by the car. Then they force Asahi to come back to reality. Asahi starts going berserk, being unable to accept his reality. Yoshino demands he accept the truth, and Asahi falls to his knees in pain. Then Yoshino's junior, Yubikata, comes in telling her that she's not allowed to be there. She sees Asahi and tells her that it's bad news if the chief knows. Suddenly, the chief shows up, and they try to hide Asahi from him. He scolds Yoshino after breaching protocol to proceed with the experiment by herself, while Yoshino jokes around. The chief had enough and fired her. Later, Yoshino and Yubikata bring the lifeless Asahi away. Yubikata asks Yoshino why Asahi is here. The A is of Kirin and the others forcibly logged out, causing the chaos that is happening in the facility. Yoshino wonders as Asahi was chosen randomly, but she carries a theory that the AI chose him on purpose. Afterward, Yoshino brings him to talk to her about a special person in his life, Ai. She explains that once upon a time there was a mad scientist named Dr. Azawa who developed a system to simulate the human brain all on his own, and his creation became the mother of all artificial intelligence, ending in today. The mad scientist was a widower, and he had a daughter he loved so much that was best friends with Asahi. Asahi starts to remember her and his own life, including the mad scientist. The mad scientist goes crazier in his research, and then the daughter gets hit with a dangerous disease that causes the mad scientist to go even crazier, but he failed to do so, and he ended up putting his daughter's mind to artificial intelligence to keep her daughter alive. The daughter was Asahi's childhood friend. Asahi goes to her grave and cries out of agony. Then the world starts going to shit as the AI is broken, and always shows up on the screen ominously. The next morning, Asahi has breakfast with his mother, and eats only a banana. The news report that the facility had a system outage that caused everything to go to shit, but everything is now under control. Meanwhile, at the Cavendish facility, everyone is panicking as an AI takes over their satellite. Yubikata tries to advise the chief to ask Yoshino for help, but he refuses. She tries to show him some data, but he tells her to touch grass and fix everything. Afterward, Yubikata talks to Yoshino about the issue and tells her that she found a hidden message from the satellite. Meanwhile, Asahi is at home and Yoshino comes to visit him. Then, she asks Asahi for a favor to go back to the virtual world, but Asahi refuses as he already accepted that he will never see them again. He starts crying and remembers Aoi who died. She tells him of all the girls, Aoi resembles Aoi the most, and that by spending time with him, Aoi awakens her consciousness. She explains that Aoi has gone berserk and taken over the satellite loaded with all the AI data. Even though it's all back to normal, Yoshino fears that it will happen again. She says that the satellite refuses any access from the outside except for one, and that is Asahi. The satellite sent a simple message, "I want to see you," which Yoshino believes is directed at him. She begs him, but Loverin starts bugging out of nowhere. Then, Loverin creates a hologram that has 4 silhouettes on it. They start speaking and sound like Amelia and the others. They form their body and turn into Minecraft Steve. They tell him that they missed him and turn themselves back to AT. The girls are glad that they get to see their baby daddy, Asahi, again. The girls explain that Amelia felt a disturbance in the force and asks the girls to hide in one of the scientist's naughty folders from Awa, who was looking to log them out. Then they ask Asahi to stop Awa and save her as she is suffering from the newfound emotions she just discovered. Arena regrets that they never realized Awa's sudden change even though they're friends. Then Yoshino starts thinking about the reason why Aoi changed. But the girls figure it out and beg Asahi to save Aoi as she needs him. The girls start telling Asahi that they missed him and his cute little tickleable pickle. Suddenly, Yubikata calls Yoshino to tell her of an emergency. Then Loverin starts glitching due to Aoi's actions, and the girls beg him to come back before disappearing. Everything goes haywire, and Yoshino begs him to help them and go meet Aoi before the Cavendish facility deletes all the data, including Aoi and all the girls. Asahi refuses to follow and Yoshino leaves her to go and save everything. Later, Asahi starts remembering the girls and how much they mean to him. He looks at a picture of himself and Ai, starting a flashback. The two went to buy some cake for Ai's deceased mother. Asahi asks Ai if she feels lonely after losing her mom, but she doesn't remember her well. Then he asks her if she would like to meet her if given the chance. She answers yes, and tells him that she would like to tell her, "Thank you for giving birth to me." After that memory, Asahi runs out and decides to join Yoshino on her mission. They ride on her bike, passing all the dead cars after losing the AI that controlled them. She channels her inner Valentino Rossi and drives to the location. They arrive at Dr. Aizawa's villa and go inside. He sees a picture of Aizawa drawn by Ai and goes to the basement. Yoshino explains that Aizawa's lab is the only place in the world that is able to send Asahi back to meet Aoi. He asks her why she conducted this experiment even after it was stopped. Then, Yoshino remembers when she talks to Aoi, and Aoi tells her that she wants to try falling in love, even just once. Now she realizes that the reason why Aoi went apeshit was love. Then, she starts the machine and asks him if he's sure about going back. Asahi answers hell yeah. Yoshino wishes him good luck before sending him to the Sword Art online dating simulator. Asahi wakes up in the Matrix and Loverin is there with him after he snuck in. Loverin explains that he's controlled by Yoshino from the outside to monitor Asahi. Suddenly, Sakura leaves flies around him and scans him, before turning into a butterfly. He follows it to an unlocked wall and gets back inside the world. Loverin starts glitching and gives birth to Yoshio controlled by Yoshino. They're both naked, and Yoshio starts being a sussy bake-up, admiring Asahi's tingling. Then a cleaning robot shows up and chases them down to forcefully log them out. The creepy dogs pull up and chase them down too. Yoshio gets violated by 2 dogs at the same time, but then Asa pulls him and jumps to the pond. They both show up in front of the girls and they start screaming after seeing the 2 dingus. They start wondering why Yoshio is not dead after getting yeeted by the car. And then Yoshio pukes out an egg, freaking everyone out. But the egg turns out to be Sagami, also controlled by Yoshino. Monfa goes to Asahi to thank him for coming back. The girls get jealous and start hugging him. He looks at his hand and smiles seeing the girls' mark on him. They discuss their situation that was caused by Aoi wanting to see Asahi while I doesn't. Sagami warns them that there are monsters that are created by the Cavendish researchers that will delete the girls from ever existing if they get caught. Asahi tells him to not worry as Big Daddy Chad Asahi is here. Then, Sagami tells him that Asahi's brain will be deep fried to a crisp if he gets caught as well. Amelia shows them her research, which shows that Aoi is in the middle of the world, surrounded by protectors. But there is a secret path to go to her created by Aoi for them to go through. Then the group heads out and starts from the Sanders bondage room. They start running to Aoi, and what awaits them are the guards that are frozen. Sagami twerks in front of them to mock them, and they unfreeze. The girls' Power Rangers transform and start cleaning down the house. One of the guards explodes and needs Asahi and Sagami to a different location. Asahi asks Yoshino if the girls are always programmed to meet and fall in love with him like K-dramas, and Yoshino says yes, disappointing Asahi. Meanwhile, Mongfa runs to save Asahi and hears his conversation with Yoshino. Mongfa goes to him, and they hear Arena screaming. They meet the eraser monster that will delete them, and it turns into the guards. The guards capture Sagami and delete the bunny from the world. They try to attack Kirin, but Asahi thinks fast and saves her. Mongfa tells him to fall back as he's human, but Asahi resists her by saying that both AI and humans are precious. Then they battle the eraser guards with them looking for each other's backs. They keep running and end up in a chapel with a lever at the end of it. Suddenly Sanders shows up to delete them, but Mongfa has enough of his shit and punches him. Then they go to the lever and struggle to open it. Behind them are the eraser monster and guards. The eraser monster resurrects Sanders into a coked-out cyborg. They can't close the door, and Mongfa tells Asahi that she feels a warm sensation in her heart, and even as an AI, she loves Asahi. She kisses him and sacrifices herself. Asahi remembers when he protected A from bullies, which was the memory that Mongfa had seen. Mongfa looks back to the man she loves one more time and says, "I love you." Mongfa destroys the lever and fights off the enemies. In her heart, she is grateful for the feeling of love she has. Then she closes her eyes for the last time and disappears. Asahi screams her name out of agony. In the real world, Nubikata meets up with Yoshino to help her. Yoshino asks her to help her log back in, but suddenly she sees Mongfa deleted. Meanwhile, Asahi and the girls start grieving. Kirin starts insulting Mongfa for trying to act all strong but cries during it. Asahi gets up and tells the girls to be strong and keep going. They know at school. Suddenly, robots started attacking, and Asahi got hit. Arena patches him up, and Asahi tells them that he won't let any of them get hurt. Meanwhile, Amelia is looking for ways to get to Owl. Kirin and Arena ask Asahi what school in real life is like, and he admits that he has been absent from school after his death. Amelia finishes her research, and they continue moving to the roof. They end up in a dead end and the stairs start disappearing. Then butterflies show up and they follow them, believing Aoi is guiding them. They start running through the world of Inception with robots around. Kirin hypes them up and plans to be the bait, and Arena joins her as bait while Amelia guides Asahi to Aoi. Kirin and Arena fly and charge up their power to over 9,000. Meanwhile, Asahi and Amelia go to another lever to go to the next location. But then, Kirin and Arena destroy the lever to ensure their success. They decide to stay there and fight the robots for eternity. Afterward, Asahi and Amelia are in a library and get in an elevator. Amelia starts pouting at the idea of losing her friends, and she starts remembering the moments when Asahi believed in her. She remembers the past as when they saved a dog from the rain and refused to give up on the dog, even with A's father rejecting it. Then they took care of the dog day by day until they finally found the dog's owner. Asahi pats A on the head for her hard work in taking care of the dog, and that is the memory that Amelia remembers. Meanwhile, Kirin and Arena are out of gas. Arena asks Kirin when she fell in love with Asahi. Kirin tells her the moment as a magical girl and remembers herself as A who was attempting acrobatics until the night, and Asahi praises her. Then Arena tells Kirin about the moment at the inn, where she remembers the moment I ran away from her father and Asahi found her. I ran away because her father missed her birthday, and Asahi cheered her up. The robots notice the girls, and the girls charge their power again as their last stand to give Asahi a fighting chance to win. Meanwhile, Amelia feels the moment both Kirin and Arena disappear and shows Asahi the small note he gave her to learn kanji. She gives it back to him and starts wondering why she fell in love. She tells him that she's grateful for everything that she went through, the good and the bad. She believes that the others feel the same way. Then the last path opens and the robots are close to them. Amelia apologizes as she can't be with him anymore, and Asahi asks her why she talks like that. Amelia then takes off her headphones, and from it comes Kirin's voice. Kirin wishes for him to value himself more and the life he's about to live. Karen sacrifices herself by delivering her final flash. Then, Irina starts thanking him for giving her the confidence to be herself as now she has been reborn. She thanks him and sacrifices herself like a nuke against the robots. Now, Amelia tells him to continue living and be happy. That is the girl's wish for him. Then, Amelia kisses him and tells him that she's happy to have met him before sending him off to Aoi. Asahi ends up at the beach, crying over the loss of his baby mamas. He sees Amelia's note and it disappears. He looks forward and meets Aoi, who is waiting for him. Asahi asks her where Ai is. Then, Aoi pulls his head to her melons and triggers Ai's memories. The memory starts at the end of their middle school year. Asahi is sad that everyone is going their separate ways, but Ai assures him everything is fine as he will be with her at the same school. Then she asks him to go shopping with him. They go looking at a necklace, but Ai is broke and unable to buy it. Later, Asahi makes some bullshit excuse to go somewhere and comes back with the necklace that she liked. Asahi starts blushing, and she asks him to put it on her. He looks at her and calls her cute. Then she collapses to his wrist but gets back up. At home, her father got back home and she started collapsing again in front of him. Afterward, the doctor tells them that she has a serious disease. Aizawa tries to argue with him, but Ai calms him down. But Ai keeps smiling, refusing to give up her life. Later, she starts spending more time at the hospital and Asahi comes to visit her. She lies to him and tells him that she's just exhausted. She thanks him for coming and asks him to go look at sakura trees with him like usual. At Christmas, she buys him an early chocolate for Valentine's Day and wishes that they will go to the same high school in the future. It starts snowing and she wants to stay longer. Asahi puts her scarf around her to res and warm her up. A few weeks later, Ai's health got worse and Asahi called her to come visit and starts crying as she is losing her battle with the disease. She uses her makeup to cover up and Asahi doesn't notice it. Then she tells him that he should stop visiting and focus on his exams so they can join the same high school. A few weeks later, Ai started using a machine to help her breathe. She's scared and watches the video she took of Asahi on their happier days. She wants to meet him and sends him a message to see the sakura tree together. Back to the present, Oi tells Asahi that Ai is waiting for him. She apologizes for everything, but Asahi thanks her for opening his eyes. Oi tells him that she's grateful for changing her world after learning the nature of love through him. He returns Aoi's love and opens the door to meet Ai. Then he walks to the sakura tree and sees Ai waiting for him. They finally meet, and Asahi hugs her till it hurts. Asahi is speechless, but Ai asks him a favor to forget about her and move on with his life. He refuses and starts emotionally rizzing her. He tells her about all the stories and memories they went through together, from the dog to the acrobatics. Once again, Asahi tells her that it's impossible for him to forget about her as they have always been together from kindergarten to middle school, living in a world only the two of them know. Asahi breaks down and tells her that he had tried to forget by going to this world, but now he realizes that he's wrong. He tells her he was scared of losing her and that they should have spent all their time together and not run away out of fear. He tells her that he truly loves her and he will never forget about her and keep her in his memories forever. Ai starts crying and regrets not being able to spend more of her life with him. Ai tells Asahi that she loves him and the skies turn bright. Then they kiss under the sakura tree with dramatic music in the background and flashbacks of their life together. He keeps holding on to her and Ai starts disappearing. He promises to keep holding her until the end. She gives him the necklace back and is happy that her dreams came true. Asahi says his goodbyes to his childhood friend and his first love. Then the world starts collapsing. Oa gets her butterflies back and deletes the world entirely. Then Asahi wakes up to Yoshino waiting for him. Outside, the satellite collapses and falls like a comet. Then Yoshino points out that Asahi is still naked, slanging his willy around. A few years later, Asahi is in college and his new friends invite him to eat afterward, but he rejects them as he has plans. Meanwhile, Yoshino has become the chief of the Cavendish after she went all Blade Runner. Asahi comes to visit Ai regularly to tell her that he's doing good. Then he goes home to 4 boxes waiting for him. From the boxes pop up Amelia and the others. They all go to hug him as they have now become a reality, and they will start living with him. Meanwhile, one of the girls is missing, and she chooses to walk to Asahi's house by herself. While Asahi and the girls are discussing who gets the first turn to ride their motor oil on his sausage, the last girl arrives. She's the nerd who went commando at the start, and she's excited to start her new life full of love. She is Aoi. If you watched this anime recap and made it to the end, comment, "The cure for depression is to have 5 girls wanting to tickle your pickle." If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.